Hello and welcome to the fifth and final classic race in the Cycling Ireland Zwift series of online racing action. We're on the Douce France circuit this morning for just one lap of a 24-kilometre circuit with a total of 133 metres of elevation. And as before, it's a handicap race this morning. Group D will depart shortly, followed at appropriate intervals in turn by Groups C, B and A. But first, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined once again by Ronan McLaughlin of cyclingtips.com, who was out racing again last Saturday and scored another great podium finish, but couldn't quite keep Richard Barry of St Finbar's CC behind him. Well, fair play, Ronan. It was a valiant effort, but it's tough to stop Richard Barry when he's in this kind of form.
Certainly, I experienced that on Saturday morning. There wasn't much I could do to live with the leaders there. So, yeah, just did the very best that I could, and Richard was a stronger rider on the day. So, yeah, fair play there.
Yeah, no, super race, absolutely great entertainment. Well, we're almost a year into Cycling Ireland Zwift racing now. Sum up what it has meant for the riders and how Zwift racing has progressed in that time.
Yeah, I think it's been, a real lifeline across the last 12 months or so that we've been in and out of lockdown, and riders have really had an opportunity to not only keep their fitness up, but also sort of get some sort of a social element from cycling, which is one of the most important parts of our sport to a lot of riders. So being able to hop on Zwift, meet up with riders, race with riders from around the world, and then, everybody talking on Discord and messenger apps and all sorts. So I think, for the vast majority of people, whether they were indoor training fans prior to lockdown or not, they're certainly more accustomed to it now and more willing to hop on and get a session done. And it's just been a great addition, and hopefully we see it continue in across, maybe not through the summers if we get back to some sort of normality. I think everybody wants to get outdoors again, but certainly wintertime, a lot of riders would probably enjoy being able to hop on another Cycling Ireland Zwift League in the future.
Yeah, it's part of the fabric of cycling now. So, a great win for Richard Barry among the A men, with Ronan McLaughlin second and Conor Verbruggen third. Limerick CC's Brian Nolan won the Battle of the Bees from Eugene Power and Ian Devlin. Ronan Bracken from Lakeside CC won Class C from Joe Mullins and Sean Curtis, while Christopher Corey topped Class D from Aidan Ryle and Donald Galvin. In the women's race, Claire Richardson had the A race to herself, while Joanna Rogan headed Elizabeth Quigley and Lorena Holleran in the battle for B honours. Andrea Lyons won Class C from Lorraine Harrington and Liz McLaughlin, while Siobhan Kelly was the top-ranked D rider. And of course, full results are available on cyclingireland.ie. Well, it's time to catch up with two of Ireland's emerging stars in different cycling disciplines who have attracted much acclaim among the general sporting public. Lara Gillespie began last year by setting a new Irish record in the World Track Championships as part of the national team pursuit squad, and she went on to win the Irish Elite Road Race Championships at the first attempt. The COVID-19 restrictions have not been too much of an imposition for the second-year UCD student who has enjoyed the extra time to devote to the books, and she explained to me when we caught up recently.
Yeah, last year was pretty fun. It started off with the team pursuit team. Loved being on the elite squad with them, and it was kind of a nice conjunction into the elite squad, coming from a junior, and really loved being with the girls and learning all about team pursuit, all about the track and what that's all about. And then came back from World Championships and basically went straight into lockdown, which I didn't mind because I was traveling so much and I basically hadn't been home for that long since I was in like fourth year in school, just with running that I did and hockey. I was just never at home. So it was actually really nice to spend time. I'm quite a family home bird. I live with my grandparents in Wicklow and my sister and my mum, and we just love gardening and just doing random, always busy at home. And so, yeah, I just was training hard throughout lockdown. It didn't really faze me. I don't really mind training on my own. And I was really lucky that a local physio who's a friend lent me loads of weights. So I just got really strong in lockdown, basically. And I had amazing coach, Thomas Fallon and Martin O'Loughlin, and just really had a good support system around me and just got really strong and really fit, which kind of built me up towards track nationals, and just had a good mindset, had good training plan. And then also the same with road nationals. That was my big goal. to win that. And yeah, I was just really delighted that I could finish it off. And then towards the end, so I was also in college, so I'm focusing on studying sports science as well. And yeah, just really enjoyed kind of the whole juggle between an athlete and student life. But it's kind of been easier at home with lockdown. I find it easier to train at home or to study at home because I'm able to train more. But right now I'm just kind of balancing that, and my days are pretty busy anyway, so I'm loving it.
Like Lara, Oisin O'Callaghan is another rider making waves as a teenager, and the Limerick rider's victory in the World Junior Downhill Championships received the ultimate national accolade when he was named RTE Young Sports Star of the Year for 2020. O'Callaghan is taking it all in his stride and staying focused in lockdown as he looks to make it back-to-back titles when racing resumes.
I was asked my goals at the start of last year, and they were to finish top 5 in the overall, and I think it was top 3 at World Champs, and that was me really setting like some high goals for myself, and I achieved them ones.
Tell us a little bit about how the World Cup series went for you, because by all accounts it was maximum attack and you weren't interested in just accumulating points.
Yeah, I didn't even think about points for the first 2 races. I just went in and ended up winning both qualifiers and both race runs, which, looking at people until this year, everyone that I've raced against before that were older with me, and seeing them, like, it looked as if it was going to be really hard, and then I was like, what? I didn't even know what I was doing to end up going as quick as I could. And
talk to me a little bit about the awards that have been coming your way, particularly the RTE Young Sportsperson of the Year award. Presumably, you were thrilled to be shortlisted. What did it feel like when you got the news that you'd won?
Yeah, well, it's a big achievement, and even for the whole mountain biking community in Ireland, it's something that mountain biking's never won in Ireland, and even in several other countries, it's something that isn't getting recognised. And it was only 2 years ago, it was the first time it was recognised in the UK. Obviously, I want to continue racing downhill the minute I finish school as a career. So I'm still focusing on school, and I'm going to finish it out. My goals for this year will be to try and be junior world champion again, and to win the overall title, which I closely missed out on last year from 2 mistakes I made. So that's the goal.
Well, Ronan, the handicap format has certainly proved to be a winner, and both races held so far have been in the balance right to the final kilometre. What are the challenges that the riders are going to face today?
Yeah, it's a unique style of race, especially on Zwift. A lot of riders are probably still getting used to it in the first 2 editions. So I think today we might see groups cooperating a lot better today. You know, in the first 2 rounds of the chase race, we've seen attacks right from the start, and it's very difficult for a single rider or a small group to close down a group that they're chasing. So yeah, I think the riders will probably need to work a bit better together today. The race is only 24 kilometers, so you know we have a bit less time to shut down that gap. The previous 2 editions of the chase race have been 38 and 42 kilometers, if memory serves me right. So they will really need to get their act together, so to speak, right from the start today to get chasing as quickly as possible, and that'll be made slightly more difficult just by the terrain. I think on the opening sections of today's course we have quite a few little rollers, a couple of lumpy little drags. No actual real climbs, but certainly enough just to disrupt the rhythm of any group that might get working well together. And then after the Aqueduct KOM midway through today's race, it's fairly flat all the way to the finish. So it'll be pretty much a drag race to the finish. Then can the D's hold off, or will the A, B's and C's be able to catch them in the final kilometres?
Yeah, another cliffhanger in prospect. Well, we're just about to get going. The Group D riders are on the start line. Let's see who's up for the fight this morning. Just over a minute to go to the start of the final of the Cycling Ireland Zwift Classic League events. It's a one-day classic race. It is the 5th one, and it's the 3rd one that we've had that is competitor paced. It's a straight what called an Australian Handicap. And the D Riders have a super opportunity today, Ronan, because the gaps are significant. They're similar to the ones we've had in the previous handicap events, but this is a bit shorter, isn't it? So it's a great shot for them today.
Yeah, certainly. It's a 24-kilometer race today, and the D's have a 10-minute advantage over the last group to start, which will of course be the A's, and that's a huge gap to overturn. In the first two rounds of the chase style race that we've seen, it's been very, very close coming into the finish, whether or not the all the groups can merge on the road, and both those rounds were over much longer distances. In fact, the first edition of this sort of chase race, I think, was close on double the distance that we have today. So certainly the D's have an excellent opportunity today, and the A, B's and C's have a difficult task ahead of them, and really need to get together right from the off today and cooperate well together.
Now we're underway in this final one-day event in the Cycling Ireland Zwift series of events, the Classic series. Building up in a couple of weeks' time. We'll give you details of that a little bit later on in the show, but we're underway here. Let's scroll through some of the names that have entered today. We've got plenty of visiting riders from Britain, from France, and from further afield as well, from Denmark, but also some of the names to come. Dayness and Geary, Carl Hand, Laney is a regular competitor, Don Morrissey, Colm O'Doherty. I know Stephen O'Shea is in there. Ronan Fox as well. We'll be hoping to stay the course today. I know he edged his partner in crime, Stephen O'Shea, in the last event. I think it's going to transcribe today as we see Stephen O'Shea close to the head of affairs inside the first couple of 100 metres, and it's ever so slightly choppy in the first kilometre or so, as you've mentioned already, Ronan, but the terrain is very much, I think, to the favour of the D riders today. There are difficult times to face, and as a result these riders are going to be super motivated because they've been given a really good opportunity.
Yeah, it's there is a couple of little rollers here at the start, but it is essentially a pan flat course today. We've got 108 metres of climbing across the 24.1 kilometres, so yeah, certainly couldn't be much flatter than that. Even the Aqueduct KOM, you're almost over it before you realise you're on a climb, and not just that suits the D's. A course like that will suit any group trying to hold off a chasing pack, and that the speeds will be so high. It's very, very difficult for a chasing group to ride at a speed high enough to catch the group in front. The speeds are going to be so high. It's just almost an impossible ask to raise the speed so high for these chasing groups to be able to chase down this leading group.
Well, I can just picked up a message on social from Richard Barry. The Corkman is on the start line among the A group. He won last week, of course, and he's going to be up against it if he's going to repeat that victory today. He said he's currently trying to this go before the 10 minutes is up. It's going to be hard to make the catch today. Indeed it is. I'm not sure who the Zwift commissar is. Maybe it's Paddy Sullivan on the line. He's trying to badger him in. He'd do well to get anything from Paddy, the late Paddy. Wasn't he absolutely fantastic? He got so many people racing, including Stephen O'Shea back in the day, and he's well to the fore towards the front. Others to mountain bike racer Liam is well to the fore as well, as indeed is M. Garland from Scotland, and we've had some top Scottish group in recent weeks who've certainly helped to keep this group working well, and that's going to be key. It's something that we've emphasised in previous handicap races, Ronan, that it's all about working as a team until such time as it comes into the end game. Racing for your own needs, wants, hopes and aspirations. But as we pick up the numbers from Stephen O'Shea, he was a great roadman back in the day, his day 1 or 2 weeks ago, but he's continuing to show great competitive zeal, and look at that, at around 4.2 over 400 watts. He and others know that a good start is half the battle in Zwift racing.
Yeah, certainly, and Stephen, one of the top riders in this D group, stacks of experience, has been racing for years at this stage, so he'll certainly be trying to marshal this group and get them working well together, although it does look like he's pulled out a slight advantage here on his own, so no doubt that'll be corrected fairly quickly, and this group will get working well together again.
Yeah, by no means was he someone who went looking for the solo win. He would often win from a group Chapter today. He promoted, of course, along with Roden Fox, the 2016 National Road Race Championships on behalf of the Orwell Wheelers squad. There's all sorts of talk about what's going to be happening with the Nationals this year. I wonder what's going to eventuate there. But Stephen O'Shea is out front at the moment, an advantage over C.O. Doherty, which is not at this point a winning one. And one wonders whether he's going to throttle back here. He's going to persevere with this. Well, no, we get the answer immediately, and that was demonstration of zeal, enthusiasm, and a great awareness of the fact that these D riders have got a super opportunity. Quick reminder, just if you're tuning in for the first time and trying to get a handle on what's happening here, we have the Group D riders off first with an advantage of 6 minutes on the next group on the road, the Group C, who in turn will be 3 minutes ahead of Group B, and between Group B and Group A, who are the fastest men on the road today, well, there's just 1 minute, so it's 10 minutes in total between first and the fourth and final group into action today, the Group A riders. So we'll try and go back to the pens as these riders are getting into business. Well, I can tell you it's about a minute and 15 seconds now before the next group head off from the pens for their 24 kilometer today. 100 meters of climbing. It's not significant in any respects. This is a flat promenade through the virtual roads of France today. The Douce course is particularly, I think, appealing, isn't it, in terms of the topography and the scenery through avenues and boulevards and through the between the trees. It's it's one or two balloons up there, aren't they? The balloon transport, of course, began in France, didn't they, in the 1700s? So they do like a hot air balloon or two.
I don't remember back that far now, Declan. I'll have to take your word for it.
Well, I wasn't there that day myself, but I heard all about it afterwards. Yeah. So it's all happening behind as we're underway in the group. Riders going to 6 minutes advantage for the Ds that they've got to see if they can overhaul. The Group C riders are going to have to get themselves organised as quickly as possible. It's often the thing, isn't it? It's about getting organised and getting organised quickly, because the likes of Richard Baird is racing today. Michael Bryan in there as well. Ben Hanrahan, watch out for him. Killian McNamara, Declan McKenna, Ken Maloney, and John Anslow, John Bullman, Joe Kloss. To try and stay the course and stay with this group. A little bit of rough surface in the early running. Many riders, of course, with the most expensive turbo trainers will have felt actually the vibration of that little cobble section translated to their turbo trainer, although I believe you can actually turn that particular mode off, and plenty of riders do, but they'll have taken a little bit of a few extra watts to maintain the same pace across that those virtual cobbles, which they're quickly across, and it's not much of an issue.
Seems fairly cruel, that, doesn't it, that you pay extra to get the higher spec turbo trainer and then you get an extra battering from it. It's something doesn't quite add up there.
Yeah, really, yeah. It's an interesting feature, yeah. Added pain and suffering. Yeah. Okay, there's the gap between the groups up front as the D riders are into action and pushing hard with an advantage. Well, it's a significant one, starting 6 minutes ahead of into action, waiting for the third. 3 minutes, of course, between the C's and the B's, so they'll be into action not too long after 9 minutes of racing, so about a minute and a half before we see the B's into action. But the D riders have completed over 5 kilometers at this moment, and they have pretty much nailed on 4 kilometer lead on the course. Just 24 kilometers of racing. Are the C's going to be able to make it up? They're surely going to be going quicker, but are they going to be going quick enough to make the catch? Well, that's the answer. That's the question which I received over the course of the next 40 minutes or so of racing, and it looks as if it's a fairly large group of D's still involved here, and as many as possible is going to be the mantra, because the more riders that they can stay involved at the front, the more likely they will hold behind. And what now? 101.6 kilometers completed for Group C. So there, the first mile is completed. Kilometers, of course, is what's been recorded up top. And well, Ronan, the we have to do today. So the B group is into action. They have got, as I say, 9 minutes to make up on the leading riders on the road. So 9 minutes of racing already underway. But now it's which one of the B riders is going to emerge from this group? Just 1 minute, of course, between the Bs. And going to Ronan, it's Egas, Shane Toman among those riders in that B group that are trying to close down the lead to the Cs. 3 minutes to make up on the Cs, and then, as I say, 9 minutes to make up on the D group up front. But of course, the fastest men of all, and women, are about to leave the pen. Just 1 minute between Bs and As, and what we have seen in recent handicap really is very little to choose between the very best B riders and the very best A's, and it's going to be quite for the A group to get on terms with these, let alone ahead.
Yeah, we're just seeing the A group start here now, Declan, and two fairly large groups here, the A and the Bs, and as you said, they've been very closely matched across the last couple of editions of the chase race that we've had. So it'll be interesting to see if they can come together and cooperate as one huge group, which really might be their best chance of drawing or pulling in the leading D group here today. I've just done a quick calculation there, and by my reckoning, the A group has to actually make up 25 seconds per kilometre to be able to catch the Ds before the finish, which is a huge ask, really, especially at the speeds that we're travelling at here today. If it happened to be a long, steady climb or at least a climb with some steeper pitches on it, then you could see big chunks of time fall away from the D group's advantage. But with the course being so fast here today, that is a very big ask indeed.
Well, Richard Barry, as you might expect, among those A riders, he's been ever present in Cycling Ireland Zwift League racing since it began at the beginning of lockdown last year, in the middle of the year 2020. That will go down in infamy as well as history. And Richard Barry has been an enthusiastic advocate of online racing throughout both the Cycling Ireland Zwift Leagues and now the Classic League Series. And he, of course, took the victory, as I said last week. Every 100 watts, make that 333 and the rest by a moment. So with 164 beats per minute is his heart rate, and of course that's going to drift upwards during the event. But even as I say that, of course, so many of the riders are well aware of the necessity of doing big preparation for these events, so they will do a long warm-up and get the intensity up to maximum so that their body is perfectly tuned and prepared for the battle to come.
Yeah, the warm-up is crucial. The shorter the race, the more important that the warm-up becomes. So with a short 24-kilometre race today, all these riders would have been, ideally speaking, would have been on their turbo trainers, anything up to 45 minutes ago to get the heart rate up, get the system warmed up, and be ready to race right from the start. As we've said many times already, this has to be almost full gas right from start to finish today if the A, Bs and Cs are going to stand any chance of catching this leading D group.
Well, almost 7 kilometres between the leading riders on the road and the fast men and women behind. The A group charging along, pushing on to see can they get on terms with the likes of Paul Patterson, James Farrelly, Michael Garland for Scotland is in there in the D group up front. Stephen O'Shea that we've. Jonathan Maltaverne is a French visitor. William Pridden from the United Kingdom. George from Ulster. Jimmy Jam Jars. There weren't too many Jam Jars on my road growing up, so I'm not sure if that's actually his real name. We love it when people do use their real name, by the way. It makes it a little bit easier for us to understand what we're looking at. But Jimmy Jamjar is a pretty interesting and amusing name. David Bracken is there. Sergi Paredes Gambon is a visitor from Spain. Colin O'Doherty, Joe Burney, John Coleman. Those are the riders still very much in contention at the front of that D group that are pressing on. And I think if I we're looking at the Bs at the moment. Fergus Fagan, a couple of Nolans in there close to the front. Well, they're crowding around trying to maintain that advantage of just 1 minute at the start over the A's, but with 9 minutes to make up over the leading riders on the road.
Yeah, and I believe this is the A's and Bs that we have on screen here now, if I'm not mistaken, and you can see the noticeable difference there in the way the two groups have lined up. The A's are very much strung out and seem to be working very well together. The speed is incredibly high, and although they're in different parts of the course, we can't compare their speeds for as we see it on screen. But the Bs then are very much bunched up together and clearly not stringing out the pace just quite as high. So perhaps we'll see the A's chasing down the Bs a bit quicker than we have done in the previous two rounds, but it really is crucial for both groups that they keep their speed as high as possible today to have, again, as I've said many a time, to have any chance of catching the leading D group.
Yeah, somewhere between 500 and 600 meters now between the Bs and the A's. So keep an eye on that to see if it is shrinking and when it shrinks. So very often we'll see that it's the A's start to make the road. They appear to be making no progress whatsoever, and it's going those groups up front, and then as it really starts to get into the legs, then it starts to hurt a bit, and they make the big gains late on, Ronan.
Yeah, we've seen in other weeks that the A's initially seem to come out of the starting blocks pretty quickly and close down a large chunk of the gap to the B group, but then it seems to stabilize and stay at that gap. But I think what was happening there in previous weeks is that the A's almost started attacking each other as they could see the B group just in front of them, and I think the leading A riders will have sort of realized today that it is essential that they work together. If they don't work together, none of them has a chance of taking the win today. So I think if we had got a picture of the starting pens, there might have been quite a few messages back and forth there between the A's saying, we need to work together here today. We need to cooperate well. Everybody needs to take a turn in the front and ensure that we have some sort of a chance of catching the leading groups in front. And it is quite important as well. We've got the likes of Matteo Chigala and that, who and for Matteo especially, racing in the Premier League races, he'll have, I think at one stage this year, I'm not sure where he is now, but at one stage this year he was the riders in the world, and to keep race that they do should not say that over.
Who's done great work with Cycling Ireland in terms of presenting social and indeed pretty tough training rides on Zwift midweek, and of course he's come racing at the weekend, and he won the second Cycling Ireland Zwift League as well, did he not, during the winter. Up front it looks as if there's not exactly total cooperation up over this little gripper.
No, there isn't, but that is the one climb on the course. It's 400 meters long. It's 3% average, so it's not incredibly steep or challenging, but it's been enough here to split this group, and we now have a leading group of 4 D riders who have an 8-second advantage over Jimmy Jamjars, who then has another 8-second advantage over a group of 3 or 4 just behind. So the Ds are splitting up. They still have a significant advantage over the chasing C group, so perhaps this could be the start of the whittling down process in D group, and perhaps the eventual winner of today's race will come from the leading 4 that we see pressing on now and actually extending their advantage to the chasers.
Yeah, apologies if we haven't got the absolutely precise on that one. It could be Yamyars or Jamyars, not 100%. I know Ronan's just trying to clarify that as we speak, but he's certainly among those riders going pretty well, as indeed is Stephen O'Shea, well to the fore. And we're focusing now on the 2 leading groups on the road, the leading riders from Group D on your right hand screen, and the top riders from Group C, who I will remind you had to close a gap of 6 minutes to these leaders up front. That was for the head start that they were. It's as if a couple of riders up front from the Ds have decided that the only way to play this is to continue to press on. Recommending, Ronan, that they maybe temper their enthusiasm a little bit and see if there's any big watts behind that might assist them in their battle to stay out front.
Yeah, it's sorry, with a bit of break up there, but I believe you're saying perhaps the Bs should come together with the As and work as one big group. It's easy for us to say, I suppose, sitting here in the commentary booths, and it seems like the right tactic. But it is, if you're in that B group and you see some of the names in that chasing A group, it is a difficult decision to make, to sort of ease off the pace and let yourself be caught, I suppose. But yeah, personally, I think that might be the best approach to take here today, and that a huge group like that will travel much faster across this flat course than two separate groups will. So although it seems strange to invite competition into your group, it could actually stand to improve your chances in the grand scheme of things.
Leading B riders pushing hard, the Bs and the As. I will remind you that it's just it's down to 300 metres now. It was at 600 metres from the start, the difference between the leading As and the leading Bs. But now, well, the straggling B riders, if that's a decent term, it's probably not fair on them really, but they are pushing hard, and the leading B riders are holding to somewhere between 300 and 400 meters. So it is closing fast among those leading A riders, still working well together. Likes of Chigala, Barry et al. Are making decent progress early on.
Yeah, they certainly are. The gap's down to 300 meters at this stage, and just noticing there as we pass this building on the right, I had clocked the B group at about 47 kilometers per hour, and now the A group going past there just at 50 kilometers per hour. Not entirely accurate way of measuring, but it just gives you an insight into the speed difference between the two groups here, and just exactly why the A group are chasing down and closing this gap so quickly today.
Yeah, and it's a flat road as well, isn't it? So it's a decent clip. There's no doubt about it. These riders are charging on. It's a short race. It's happened to sustain. It is an aerobic event, not anaerobic. So to be able to sustain this kind of power and speed for such a decent length of time just shows what an impressive work is being done. Impressive work too by the riders up front. It is Stephen Wheelers Club in Dublin, who has the company of our Spanish visitor Paredes Gambon, who has decided to join up and make it a duo up front. So a little bit of a Barachi time trial. 2 up. Is it a Grand Prix des Gentlemen? Not exactly sure, but the worker Jimmy Jamjars is at a remove now of 22 seconds, so it's a decent advantage that these two up front. I don't think there's any question, Ronan, that our two leaders up front are going to wait for the riders behind. They're going to continue to work well together, and they do seem to be rotating well.
Yeah, the two leaders here are certainly working well together, and they've extended that gap, as you said, out to 22 seconds from the last time when we seen them was just about 5 or 6, if I remember correctly. So they're certainly working well together. They appear to be the strongest from their group, and they're in with a great shout of winning today's race. And we keep referring to the fact that it's such a short race today, 24 kilometers. But I can tell you now, for those two leading riders, they're at their maximum to build on this advantage that they have. And with 9 kilometers remaining, they'll almost be counting down every meter at this stage, just wishing for them to get to the finish as quickly as possible. And in all likelihood, they might actually just sprint it out amongst themselves for the win today. And that would be a huge achievement for those leading two D riders here today to take the win.
Potentially, if I will remind you all, Stephen O'Shea is quite the galloper back in the day. He's saved up a few of those fast twitch muscle fibers for his appearance in Cycling Ireland Zwift League racing. Sergio Paredes Gambon is the Spanish visitor in the company of Stephen O'Shea of Dublin, and Jonathan Maltzburn from France is among the at 21, 22 seconds and counting. It's probably stretching out a little bit. William Pridden, Jimmy Jamjar, as we've mentioned, is the Irish rider with the unique name. David Bracken, Paul Patterson, Colm O'Doherty, James George, Glendenning, John Coleman, all in a group behind Antonio Gravellu, Michael Garland from Scotland. And then there's a bit of a gap between those riders and further chasing riders behind Jamie Toyer, Tony Guy, Craig Phillips, Kevin Smith, Don Morrissey, Brian Cotter, Nessun Geary, and the rest. The list goes on and the racing goes on, and they're pressing hard to try and get on terms. Chigala and Barry going well.
Yeah, Richard Barry has just jumped across with Matteo Chigala right through the B group here, and they're pressing on what looks like a 2-up attack here. They've really split both the A and the B groups on this Aqueduct KOM, and they're pressing on with an advantage now over the remaining a very small advantage, that is, over the combined A and B group now.
Speed over the tarmac, approaching 50 kilometers per hour, and indeed stretching up as we go up and over that little drag. It's the only significant climb worth a mention on this course. Speed wrap at moments over 60 kilometers an hour. And Richard Barry, Chigala, and others, they've started to reassemble on the descent. Is this tactical, or have the others realized the danger and made an extra effort?
They're certainly reassembling now, but it'll be interesting to see what the other riders in this combined A and B group will do now. Will they look at Matteo Chigala and Richard Barry and sort of sense that perhaps they are the strongest riders in the group today, and perhaps be fearful of working too much with them, and risking putting themselves at a disadvantage coming in towards the finish? And that is the risk that the Richard Barry and Matteo Chigala have played here, and that's by attacking early. If they don't make that clear break and get themselves away where they can work well together, they are also going to scare off the other riders in this group from contributing to the chase.
This is the A and the C groups, respectively. So the second group that started this event and the fourth and final group have to make at 1,100 meters, still 1.1 kilometers between the A and the C group, and plenty of bragging rights out there. And I think there's a super chance that the A's are going to catch, having accumulated 1 or 2 B's along the way, are going to hoover up. I think they're going to. Will they get to any, or indeed all of the T's? That's going to be a big ask for them today.
It certainly is, but we are seeing the A and B group here now. We've just got an overhead shot here, and we can see it is quite a large group. Matteo Chigala is sort of sitting there near the back in the Vitus Pro Cycling team kit, and we are seeing this group work and cooperate well together, and perhaps better than they have done in the previous 2 editions of the chase race. So it's by no means decided that the D group are going to stay away, but it's still very much advantage D group.
Interesting as well that there were an awful lot of van power-ups, and in evidence there, Ronan, the decision made to use that power-up, that particular power-up, across those that little cobble later on in the race.
Yeah, the speed is high here, and a lot of riders had to put on a huge effort over the Aqueduct KOM there, and we've seen the group splitting. A lot of riders having to dig deep to get themselves back on terms with the leading A's and B's there. So perhaps just some tired legs out there at the moment, and when we hit the cobble section, they maybe perhaps had not planned to use their power up there, but were forced to just to maintain contact with the rest of the group. But interestingly, there are Spanish leaders. Paredes Gambon isn't showing a heart rate data on Zwift Power, so we might have to just keep an eye on whether or not that is just a temporary glitch, or if that could be a problem for him in the final results.
Well, one way or another, that could be good news for Stephen O'Shea. Probably doing a bit of good news at the moment, because I tell you what, this is not a done deal for bragging rights among the Ds, whether they do hang on ahead of the A's or not. Recently, it looked as if class honours at any rate among the D riders, but you wouldn't say that's absolutely nailed on certain at the moment. Their advantage had stretched out to 23-24 seconds, starting to shrink a little bit. Are they starting to finesse a little, or is it perhaps they're showing the folly of going they're setting their stall out a bit early on this one.
Yeah, as I was saying there just a bit earlier, it is a huge effort that the two leading D riders are having to make here to try and work together and hold off the chasing pack. And interestingly, those chasing riders that were in ones and twos before have now amassed into a group of 12 riders, if I count right, and that group of 12 is now at 12 seconds. So they are quickly eating into the advantage that the two leading D riders have, and it'll be interesting to see now if they can hold them off. It's somewhat surprising tactic, as you said. Stephen O'Shea does have a very handy sprint about him, and we probably would have expected him to sit in the group and play his cards on the sprint, but he has gone early here, and it'll be interesting to see now whether he can sustain that.
One or two cracks developing in that group of fast men behind. You've got the likes of Matteo Cigala and Eddie Brennan, Richard Barry, all in this group of A's, and we just saw a rider let the wheel go there, and a few riders who were distanced. We know Stephen Evans has been as B riders and is charging along in the wake of these A's at the moment. They just knit that one back together again. I think many of the riders, including Shane Toman as well, another good, very strong B rider who's made it into here, Stephen Edmondson, and that group is starting to thin out a little bit. And for all that there is a useful draft effect in Cycling Ireland Swift League racing. It's fair to say that this does turn into a little bit of an individual time trial, albeit group. It's counterintuitive. We talk about working together. There is a draft effect, but you've certainly got to work in there. It's not a case of just sort of riding along in the wheels, and it's all very handy.
Yeah, you have to. In some ways, you have to work together with those that you're trying to beat. It's a strange scenario that plays out in these chase races, but we can see now the gap between the A and B combined group and the C group is just down to 600 meters or so. So that junction is likely to be made in quick time here now, and then it'll just be the leading D riders who are left out in front for the A and Bs to catch. But time is ticking away here. They're running out of road rapidly. There's 7 kilometers to go for the A's and Bs, but the D riders are well within inside the last 5 kilometers, so it's still a very difficult ask for them to pull in these leading riders.
Obviously one of the leading C riders, and it looks as if it's all attack indeed among those C riders. Second group on the road, starting to accumulate some of the D riders who made huge on and paying for that effort. Last time we heard, gap down to 11 seconds between our two leaders up front. I will remind you, Sergi Paredes Gambon not showing heart rate data at the moment, so his position in the results somewhat in jeopardy at the moment. Stephen O'Shea certainly is right figures at the moment. He's cranking out 3.3 watts per kilo, and it's good enough for around about 43 kilometers an hour across this tarmac. It's impressive stuff. He's riding well. Jonathan Maltavern chasing at a remove. Last time we heard some advantage now for who is struggling a little bit to follow the pace that's being set by Sergi Paredes Gambon. Ronan.
It does look to be the gap is just opening up there ever so slightly, but it looks like Stephen O'Shea is going to close this gap here now again, just as they come inside the final 2 kilometers to the finish line. And interestingly, we just noticed there as well that Jimmy Jamjars, one of the chasing D riders, also not showing any heart rate data, so or data, however you pronounce it, may also
we don't know how to pronounce Jamjars. That's the real issue.
I think Jamjars is fairly clear cut. We're just slightly perplexed by it, but it's interesting to see. The leading D riders are inside the final 2 kilometers here, and it's still. I think when we last seen the A's, they were at 6 kilometers to go, so it looks like they will be still within. The win is within touching distance for these leading D riders now.
from of this event as we see riders further back, and there's now 300 meters between these leading A competitors to get on terms with the best riders from the C group up front. So it looks as if they're about to be hoovered up by this fast-moving juggernaut of the very best A riders who've accumulated a couple of very strong riders from B to help with the effort of getting on terms up front. So it looks like all but the leading D riders are going to be accumulated in this handicap event. So good news on at least meager good news, you might say, for Richard Barry and friends, but surely they're not going to be able to. Well, I think it's pretty much a done deal, isn't it, for the riders up front? Question is, will those chasers retain any sort of energy to get on terms with our leaders up front? Gaffney among those C riders who's hanging on grimly to an advantage, fast shrinking, dwindling advantage of less than 300 meters over the D's and A's behind. Sorry, the leading A's behind. A little bit about what's going to happen up front in the next couple of kilometers, Row.
Yeah, and the leading riders, they must be, fast approaching the final kilometre now. It'd be good to get a view of what's happening up front here, because certainly the two leading D riders are going to be in the sprint for the finish. Whether they'll be alone or not will be another thing, as we see the chasing D riders just closing down to 4 and 5 seconds behind them now. So we're inside the final 600 metres if the ticker is to be believed at the top. So it'll be it looks like it's going to be a 2-up sprint for the win.
So Stephen O'Shea goes to the front, and is this the way to play it? Has he gone for the line too early? How do you time this one? He starts to make his move, puts a bit of daylight between himself and Paredes Gambon, and Stephen O'Shea is not going to the issue with any, because regardless of heart rate data being recorded by away companion or not, it's Stephen O'Shea who's going to be the first one across the line. He's going to take the victory. I will predict at this moment, if he can sustain this one through and under the banner to complete the 5th and final Cycling Ireland Zwift. He's within touching distance of the line, and Stephen O'Shea has almost got there at this point. He's racing solo for glory today. And, well, he's done it. Absolutely fantastic work by Stephen O'Shea of Orwell Wheelers in Dublin. Has taken the win. And that's going to be a considerable boost to him and his morale, and indeed all of his clubmates, as the leading riders behind among the, I think this is possibly the A group yet. With the C's. Still plenty of racing back out the road, but great performance there by Stephen O'Shea.
Yeah, it certainly was, and whoa, that was a long sprint for the line. I'm not sure if Stephen knew how far out he was from the finish line there. We certainly, as usual, struggled to see exactly where the finish line was, but that must have been a good 30-40 second sprint at least, and he certainly had saved some energy in those legs for that final push, because he sustained the sprint all the way to the line. And as you said, with Gambon having not had heart rate data there, he most likely will be pulled from the results anyway, but still, great for Stephen O'Shea to be able to cross the line first and take the win. I'm sure he'll be delighted with that.
We'll bring them home. Richard Barry has honoured Cycling Ireland Zwift League Racing. I will remind you, of course, that please do go onto the cyclingireland.ie website, because there are details of the next series of league events coming up very shortly, and I don't have all the full details. It's kind of fascinating league action. We're still in lockdown in Ireland, of course, and it's a challenge for everyone, and it's great to have these outlets, this opportunity to have a competitive burst of energy, as we see the A riders going to come on terms with the riders in front, and friends hoover up and accumulate yet another group of riders that are just overhauled as if they were stood still, and that will give you some sense of the relative strength of this. Really is this wonderful strength and depth in Cycling Ireland Zwift League Racing.
Yeah, there sure is, and it's becoming increasingly popular all the time. We've seen more and more riders sign up to the events on almost on a weekly basis. We're seeing the numbers increase, so it's it's certainly providing that competitive outlet that riders need at the moment, given that, as you mentioned, we are still in lockdown here, and it's it's a way to keep your racing going without having to even leave your house, which, as we've said many times, is one of the, I suppose, luxuries that the sport of cycling has, and other sports can't avail of it at the moment. So we're lucky to be able to enjoy this type of racing.
Yeah, it's been a real boon and a real boost to all of us. It's been marvellous. Yeah, just a quick reminder of I've find the details on the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. So Gary Nugent and the crew have put together wonderful racing over the last years, and to remind you, 8 races over an 8-week period coming up very shortly, starting from the 27th of February. Running until 17th of April, and of course everyone is welcome to take part, participate, score points in a single race or indeed the entire series. Please do register. You'll have an opportunity to register through the first couple of weeks as we see the riders behind getting set for the final sprint in this series of one-day events, and this for bragging rights. In the race behind your winner today, Stephen O'Shea, but among the A's, everybody wants to see who's going to be the strongest. Richard Barry's got a useful sprint. Matteo Chigala, of course, too, knows how to time this one to perfect, and he's done this kind of racing, and he's coming with a late the avatar is out of the saddle. I wonder too if those old dropouts aren't straining a little bit to contain the energy that's been put into the bike, the stationary bike. Barry and friends go for glory here, but it could well be that Richard Barry manages to just hold them off here. We wait for full confirmation of those results. Might have been Stuart Henry, actually, that might have just got up to lead the fast men across the line. So the prize for fastest rider is virtual, just like everything about this event, but a few bragging rights in that one. There you have it. There's a Stephen O'Shea first across the line. Sprinted to power to glory, clear of his breakaway companion Sergi Paredes Gambon of Spain. Jimmy Jamjars gets up for third on the day, ahead of James Farley, William Pridden, Michael Garland, David Bracken, Paul Patterson, Colm O'Doherty, and Joe Burney rounding out the top 10 after another terrific day of racing in the Cycling Ireland Zwift Classic League Series. Well, that's the top 10. That's to be mulled over the next couple of days. We'll have full and complete results by Wednesday, all confirmed by zwiftpower.com and in consultation with the organisers of these events. Quick reminder as well, of course, to come back next week for some Cycling Ireland Zwift League racing. I'm not sure we'll be here live, but certainly the racing will be a sight to behold. If you're managing to compete yourself, please do tune in for that. Okay, that's it for the Cycling Ireland Zwift Classic League Series. It only remains for me to thank all the crew, everyone that's assisted, from myself, Declan Quigley, and from Ronan McLaughlin, who's been with me on comms throughout the last year. And thanks very much for all your assistance, Ronan, and thanks to all the team, to Georgie, Naomi, and all of the Cycling Ireland crew as well, to Gary and Scott, etc. That's it for now, but it only remains for me to say goodbye.